Well, it looks like it's time for me to start my talk, so I'm going to go ahead and do so. Let me introduce myself. My name's Joe Axford. I doubt if there's any newbies in here that are as green as me, but if there are, I want to try to help you with the things that with the resources that I found that helped me as in my efforts to learn Perl. I also want to try to help any experienced Perl users, which probably are most of you. If you're here because you're interested to know what newbies may be experiencing, newbies that are trying to learn Perl, I'll try to share with you my experience. I don't know if that's going to be similar to any other newbies' experiences. All I can do is try to share a little bit of mine. And what I found was when I was preparing for this talk that 20 minutes goes by very quickly. So what I did was I created a blog entry at blogs.perl.org with the detail that I think newbies, that might be helpful to newbies to use the resources that I'd like to discuss. And I would also, so if you go to the conference website and go to my talk, there's a link to that blog entry and all those details that I thought newbies, that might be useful to newbies or for the experienced Perl users who would like to know about my experience. Those details are there. I also would like to ask somebody to come up here and help me so that I can be free to speak and not be messed with my laptop. And the person I'd like to ask, and I didn't let him know ahead of time, you're actually willing to do it, John? John is one of the handful of people that I met at this conference who I've really enjoyed spending time with, and so I appreciate your help.
Are you just like me?
Yep, you. Okay, so here we go. We're going to bring you into this too. And let me say also, I want this to be a very informal talk. If anybody wants me to say something I'm not saying or have any questions, yeah?
Could you repeat that blog address?
It would be yapcna.org. yapcna.org. That's the conference website. And I'm really glad you asked that question. Because when I'm, preparing for this talk, I'm thinking, I'm the most stupid person in here. And it's probably true. And maybe I shouldn't even judge myself like that. But anyway, I'm glad that you asked that question. Thank you. So here is a very informal survey. How many people have used Perl Doc Server? Raise your hand if you have used Perl Doc Server. How many people have not used Perl Doc Server? Wow, okay. Great, I was worried that everybody already used Perl Doc Server and therefore I'd be wasting my time if I would spend any time talking about it. Now, in my efforts to learn Perl, this is the first thing that I stumbled across that I think really helped me, because I've been trying to use the documentation using Perl Doc, which many of you may use very successfully. How many use Perl Doc? Do you like it? Does it work effectively for you? Some people yes, some people no. Are there some instances where Perl Doc Server you can't use it? Like if you're on a server or something and there's no browser? Okay, I don't do any of that stuff. The first time I used Linux was about a year ago. So, I'm really green. I've been just learning as I go. And and it's real easy for me to go on tangents, and I've already talked for 4 minutes, but I just got to say is that it's been 15 years since I was in the software development world. And my experience was with embedded real-time systems, assembly language, and C under the MS-DOS platform. When I decided to get back into software engineering or software development about a year ago, I wanted to learn about open source software, and I wanted to learn about Unix or Linux or something like that. So I started using Linux. And I didn't have the internet when I was doing my software engineering and when I went to college back in the mid-'80s. And now that I've got the internet, these resources that I've been using, I'm like, the whole world is opening up to me. Now, maybe other people don't get so enthusiastic about this stuff, but to me, it's such a difference from what it was like when I first got into it. And one of the reasons why I think I got out of it was Well, some of the reasons is that I found other interests. One of them is that I ended up moving to Austin, and there's the music scene here, and I've always been a guitarist, and I thought, wow, maybe I can do this. I don't want to write code anymore. I want to play guitar. But I didn't really have much of a community at all. There were just a handful of people that I worked with. Gee, and I even changed the power or whatever so that it wouldn't do that. So at any rate, thank you. But again, if I didn't get this across before, if you've got a question, raise your hand, or even better, just holler out, because I might not see you raise your hand. If there's any, nice to see you. Another person that I, Bulk 88, there's one smart cat right there. So anyway, Perl doc server. This is Perl doc server. Once you take the helm there, and the thing that was useful for me is I don't have to type in any module names or any document names. It lists modules by alphabet, and it's got like the core Perl stuff here, language, functions, operators. Just kind of mess around. Go to Catalyst and just scroll. Yeah, hit C. And then scroll down a little ways. And look at all the Catalyst documentation. The first time I pulled this up, and it's like, wow, look at all that Catalyst documentation. I didn't know that it existed. So I found the manuals and the tutorials, and I started going through them. And before I knew it, I tried to come up with an application that might be kind of fun to create. And I then started learning Catalyst using that documentation. Then that brought in DBIX class. Thank you very much, Peter Rabbitson. Yay, give him a big hand, folks. And I got to the last chapter of the Catalyst tutorials, and I stumbled across HTML form handler. Thanks, Gerda Shank, if you're in here. Even if you're not in here, thank you. What else did I stumble across? Moose. I didn't get into the Moose stuff very much, but you know, by default, you're using Moose if you use Catalyst, right? I learned how to use Template Toolkit, and it was the documentation that helped me learn these things. Again, I'm just at an entry level, a beginner's level, but to me, it's like, you know, I feel like empowered because I've been finding these resources. The latest thing that I figured out how to do with this thing was I started using GitHub, and I'm running, CentOS 6.3. Which then when I installed Git, so that I could use GitHub, it installs using yum, you know, installing from the shell, is that it installed Git, but it took me a while to realize that it was a version that's lower than what GitHub requires. I started trying to do some stuff with GitHub, and it wasn't working, and so I had to go on the internet and research it a little bit, and pretty soon I found out, oh, you need version 1.7 or whatever it is. So then I had to figure out how am I going to get version 1.7 installed, and I found somebody's blog entry, and it had all these steps, and it looked pretty scary, but I went ahead and did it, and I took notes as I was doing it. It ended up working. I got the correct version of Git installed, and I've got notes that I can go back to if my laptop dies or if I get another laptop and I need to do this again, you know. So I just take good notes as I go, and I'm just a happy camper. But this is Perl doc server, and it was very useful for me. How many of you folks use irc.perl.org or some other chat site? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's a lot, 7, 8, 10. So there might be 30 people in here. So a lot of you don't use chats at all. Do you use chats at all? This fella doesn't. Why?
I like offline more. Like just search for something, not like people.
Well, that's a good point, and in my blog entry, I tried to highlight that point because I was very afraid to go on to irc.perl.org and chat live with people. Very intimidated. And so before I did that, and I had Linux questions and I had MySQL questions because I'd never used my relational database or MySQL. So somehow I stumbled across forums.devshed.org, I think, and I'm trying to remember the other one that I came across. It's listed in my blog entry. Did anybody else know any places like forums.devshed.org? We were talking about it
PearlMonks.org is a good resource.
Oh, Perl Monks?
Stack
Okay.
Overflow.
That's the one I'm thinking about, because they have that kind of blog format where you can take your time. I took my time and I edited and I went back and I maybe did a little research on the internet so I could, because I didn't have the vocabulary to say what it is that I wanted to say. So it took me time to express what it was that I wanted to express to get help. And it wasn't very threatening because it wasn't live. So I just posted this, and then I set my email notifications so that when somebody responded, then I was notified by email, and then I went back and I looked at the response and blah, blah, blah. So that's a good way to go about getting help if a person's intimidated. But the nice thing about chat is potentially you can get help faster. And you can start developing relationships with people like I have with this guy right here who's helped me a lot. Yay! And Matt Trout has helped me a lot. And Hobbs and D. Petroff and...
Tom.
Huh?
Tom.
And Tom. Tom was one of the... Actually, Kieran DeMint helped me before him, but Tom gave me what he called his Tom's heavy tools. Because I won't... See, I'm starting to go off on tangents here, and I'm going to waste all my time. So you have you used irc.perl.org?
Only past few days, chatting. Just kind of paying attention to what was chatted on.
Calm down. Okay, well, you're going to use it now. If you click on that icon right there, yep, that one right there. The nice thing about irc.perl.org is you don't have to do much to set it up. I think all you have to do, and you have to install a client if you don't have one already. I'm using XChat. I'm running Linux. And it took me a while to find a nickname that I liked, and I got it from Tom because he is T0M, and I thought, wow, I could be j0e. And so I would been going by Hackster before I liked that, and before I found that, and which I didn't really like. Anyway, so you need a nickname, and if you hit edit, you can show them the configuration. So I think all I need to do is give a nickname, a second choice. I automatically connect to Catalyst. That's really the only channel I end up going to. And then up there, that's the server, irc.perl.org with, I guess it'd be a port address. I think if you open up another tab in the web browser by clicking on that thing right there. You don't have to, just click there and type in irc.perl.org. If you go to irc.perl.org with a web browser, it'll give you the camel, and then it'll tell you a port to use. You scroll down, which is not the port I use. I use 6665, and I don't know where I got 6665, but that's what I'm using, and it works, so whatever, okay? But it's pretty easy to use. If you use Freenode, at least if I remember right, I had to do a lot more to configure it and make it and use it. So anyway, irc.perl.org is easy to connect to. Go back to my XChat and go ahead and connect.
Easy, but not necessarily fast.
At least loading. So there it is. And don't paste your code into the chat side. You're going to see a link which is somewhere over here. No pasting. Okay, right there. So go ahead and click on it. What you might have to do, you right-click on it actually and open and then Okay, so that's where you would go to paste your code. Okay, and what I found, and here's a bit of advice. Okay, I'm running out of time, so I got to make this quick. There's some etiquette I learned by using irc.perl.org. And for me, I'd have all this. First of all, I learned to go out and try to do the stuff on my own, okay? And then at some point then, I came to irc.perl.org and I asked for help, armed with the information from trying to do it on my own. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to type out all my thoughts, and before I even got half of it out, people started responding to me, okay? And I kept typing, and sometimes people will not be happy because when they start responding to you, I learned it's best to stop typing, read what they're saying, and either answer their question or do what they're asking you or suggesting that you do. Otherwise, you're wasting their time, and rightfully so, sometimes people get upset. So that's my advice to you. I don't think we really, I mean, you can go through the blog and get through some more detail. I think you can I know all of you can figure this stuff out. So, does anybody have any questions about irc.perl.org? Okay. Yes?
Do you use proxy server of IRC, proxy server, such like a GNC?
I don't.
You don't know?
Do I use a proxy server?
You use?
Me? No.
No?
Not that I know of.
GNC or Tiara is a famous the proxy server.
Maybe I do and I don't even know it.
Install the proxy server, and if the client is offline, but and then online, if the online, there are we can see the logging of the log of the friend offline. It's a good product.
Thank you.
GNC.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would say that an IRC proxy server is only useful if you have to have the same IP for if you have op rights or something. Because if you have a dynamic IP, IRC normally doesn't care if you're an unprivileged user.
Which I do have a dynamic IP address. Let's wrap up the irc.perl.org. And the other thing I want to discuss, and I'm running out of time, I only have 4 more minutes, is I want to discuss blogs.perl.org. And for me, the importance, and why don't you go ahead and go in the web browser to blogs.perl.org. The importance to blogs.perl.org for me is that I created and deployed a Catalyst application. I just tried to do it for fun and to try to learn some Perl skills. And after I did that, then and I took good notes as I did it. So after I successfully did that, I went back and did it again, but this time I created tutorials for each step of the way, and I posted these tutorials to blogs.perl.org. And if you go to my link that I provide at the conference website, there will be information about those tutorials and links so that you can go right to those tutorials. What I did was I deployed an application at yardbirdfanclub.org. Yardbird is my dog. And I just tried to have a little bit of fun with it. But I posted these blog entries, and that's how I got to know Peter, because he saw some misunderstanding conceptually that I had of the DBIX class, and he was kind enough to take the time to tell me that and to offer to help me with that. And yesterday he spent about 20 minutes with me explaining and trying to help me correct my misconception, and he also then gave me the opportunity to contribute to the Perl community, and I don't have time to get into that, and that's so again, yay, you did the greatest. So it helped me connect in a small way to the Perl community and to get to know some people. Same about the irc.perl.org. I mean, Matt Trout, as well as these other folks like Tom, and many people gave of their time and their considerable experience and knowledge, and I'm thankful for that. And everybody's always been kind to me there. And I'm running out of time, but blogs.perl.org, you can see what I've got to say just by following that link that I provided for you from the conference website. And something that I want to highly suggest is that people get a little bit irritated if you post a blog entry and you don't use what's called the extended feature. So the idea, when you have to become a member of blogs.perl.org to be able to use it. I mean, to be able to create blog entries or comments. You can view other people's blog entries without a membership. But when you create your own blog entry, you're going to see 2 tabs. One's going to say body and one's going to say extended. What you want to do is create like a short introduction under the body tab and then put the rest of your blog entry under extended. That way, when your blog entry appears in the homepage of blogs.perl.org, all people get is just that first page that you put under body. Otherwise, if you put your whole blog entry under body, people are going to see your whole blog entry, and they're going to have to like scroll down to the bottom and maybe go to the next page to see the next blog entry, and that's a nuisance. It's not necessary. If you use that extended feature, then there's going to be a link underneath your first page saying, you know, click on this to continue and read the rest of the blog entry. I'm out of time. I'm really enjoyed preparing this talk. I hope that you are getting some value from this talk, and thank you for being here, and thank everybody that has helped me in my efforts to learn Perl. Thank you very much. And thank you, John.